If I were to ask you to name 3 Fantastic Four villains, who would come to mind? I'll give you a few seconds to think, but I'm sure we all have the same answers. Doctor Doom is a given, Annihilus if you're a real one, maybe a little Mole Man action in there if you know ball, but I'm pretty sure we all thought of Galactus. You know, the guy from Fortnite. The giant planet-eating cosmic powerhouse is as synonymous with the Fantastic Four as the number 4 itself, and that says a lot because they practically invented that number. Ever since he made his first appearance in Fantastic Four number 48 all the way back in March 1966, he's been terrorizing Marvel's first family with the looming threat of eating the Earth like an apple. And yeah, he was originally green and it makes me very uncomfortable to look at, so I'm gonna move on from that as fast as possible. The big purple antler man is set to finally make his live-action debut in the Fantastic Four First Steps in just a few short weeks, and I could not be more excited about it. Yes, his live-action debut, because he never showed up anywhere else. I don't care if they called him Galactus and he had a Silver Surfer as his herald. If that man isn't purple with a big helmet, he isn't Galactus, so get that fart cloud out of my sight. Despite how much I want to forget that ever happened, finally getting to see what this larger-than-life villain would look like in live action has me more excited than ever. The brief looks we've seen from Snapple of all places look like he's ripped straight out of the comics, so I am a very happy boy. I know it's been over a year since we learned that Galactus would be in this movie, so I'm kind of a little late on making this video, but I've still seen so many people run with this misunderstood idea that Galactus should be a saga villain and they're wasting him in this film, and I could not disagree with that sentiment more. I think that Galactus is the best possible choice to be the villain of our very first MCU Fantastic Four film, and let me tell you why. For starters, Galactus is not the big bad some people think he is. I completely get why that misconception exists, because look at him. A man so large the human mind can't comprehend him threatening to destroy the world screams Avengers level threat. So from a surface level glance, I can't fault anyone for thinking that. But here's the thing. Take a look at pretty much any Galactus story and you'll see that it's much simpler than that. He's hardly ever used as a collective threat for the Marvel Universe to conquer because there isn't much to do with that. It's not like the Avengers can square up with him. He can change his size at will and squish them like ants, so a standard fight is completely out of the question. And how would you even build up to him in the long term? He isn't a character like Thanos who can make multiple appearances teasing his arrival. When you see Galactus, it's already way too late, and there aren't any Infinity Stone-esque MacGuffins that our heroes can obtain in the meantime. It's a fairly straightforward process with Galactus. He sends in his herald to scout the planet and heed a warning of his oncoming rival, and then you start praying. The only time Galactus has ever been used as a long-term villain was in Fantastic Four Life Story when Reed got a vision of him devouring their world years ahead of time and had to live with that constant sense of paranoia. And interestingly enough, it seems like First Steps might actually be adapting that in some way. Director Matt Shakman let slip that Reed is going to discover the existence of Galactus ahead of the Silver Surfer's arrival by discovering a planet going missing in the cosmos. Which I think is a great idea to do that story in a much more self-contained way that still gives Reed this ever-present sense of paranoia as he knows that something is coming, he just doesn't know what it is yet until the Silver Surfer arrives. Especially if Reed's discovery accidentally cues Galactus in about Earth's existence, and then it's almost Reed's fault that this is happening in the first place. We're about to see the most stressed out and paranoid man of all time, and that is exactly what I'm looking for, my Reed Richards. It's much better to use Galactus as this interpersonal conflict that motivates someone than it is to try and turn him into a threat that everyone can unite to fight. And come on, the first time the Fantastic Four encountered Galactus, they just threatened to shoot him and he left. I don't know how you can draw that out for an entire saga. Galactus is much more compelling when he's a threat that you have to outsmart, and that's where the Fantastic Four come in. I would argue that Galactus is the perfect Fantastic Four villain. Doctor Doom is obviously their greatest enemy, that man is on some real hater shit, but there's no villain who is able to highlight what makes the Fantastic Four so special quite like Galactus. Marvel's first family isn't your traditional group of superheroes. They aren't fighting crime like the Avengers, protecting the cosmos like the Guardians, or a paramilitary strike force full of children like the X-Men. The Fantastic Four are scientists and explorers first, heroes second. Their priority is always in challenging the unknown as they look to discover the secrets of this vast and ever-expanding multiverse. It's not like they're stalking the streets like other vigilantes waiting for crime to strike. Most of the time, they stumble into a hostile situation and then have to problem-solve their way out of it, and I think Galactus is the perfect reflection of that. His arrival shakes up their knowledge of the very foundation existence operates on, as he is the last survivor of the previous iteration of the universe before the Big Bang. His insatiable hunger is impossible to ignore, as he must feed on energy in order to redistribute it and make sure that the cosmic scales are balanced. It's a very comic booky way of saying that there's no way to stop Galactus. He is a force of nature more than anything else, and it's not like the Fantastic Four can rewrite how the universe works. Putting this team of scientists against a law of the universe and seeing how they can outsmart it is the most thrilling thing ever to me. It takes some genuinely great and consistent writing to pull it off in a satisfying way, which they almost always manage to deliver on. Or, I mean, I guess you could use the ultimate nullifier. This space-age stapler-shaped gun looks absolutely pathetic, but it's capable of destroying 9/10 of the entire universe. At least that's what the stories say. There's only one way to actually prove that, and unless you want to commit a mass murder-suicide, I'm not willing to test it. And neither was Reed, because he bluffed his way into scaring Galactus away, outsmarting him and managing to spare Earth. It may be a very straightforward idea and an easy out to defeat Galactus, but I do really like the idea of the Fantastic Four straight up outsmarting him, lying their way through a situation. That's the most famous way they've beaten that purple freak, but there are tons of others like trapping him in the negative zone they could do as well. It's up to the writer to come up with a creative and surprising way to defeat Galactus while maintaining the order of the universe, and I think that's what makes him so exciting. It's those kind of ethical dilemmas and impossible problems that I think the Fantastic Four thrive in, so it makes complete sense to use Galactus as their first villain in the MCU. He's someone who can showcase their unique skill set as explorers and give audiences the perfect introduction of what they can expect out of the Fantastic Four, much less stopping bank robberies and more puzzle solving, which carves them an exclusive style of storytelling not seen in the MCU up to this point. But I think that First Steps takes this a step further by adding a new wrinkle to their dynamic. When we pick up with the Fantastic Four, they've been superheroes for 4 years at that point, which is incredible commitment to the bit right there. They have transformed their world into an unrecognizable one from our own. The swingin' 60s have merged with the technology of the future to create this gorgeous retro-futuristic utopia. They seem to have things under control a lot more than we ever did at the time, to the point where their version of New York City is actually inhabitable. Citizens don't have to live in fear of an alien invasion happening every other week or a massive and depressive void making them relive their most shameful moments. Thanks to the Fantastic Four, everything is actually kind of good for once, which is such an inspired idea and a great utilization of the multiverse. It finally positions the team as the global celebrities they should be as the world looks to them for support. So imagine their surprise when this beautiful utopia is threatened. That life of luxury becomes both a blessing and a curse. For the first time, there's something out of their control that they don't know how to fight back against. It's like trying to fight a hurricane. It's impossible. The best you can do is just prepare. Placing the Fantastic Four in a world that hasn't been hardened and desensitized by years of loss and violence is a genius move that breathes new life into not just their history as heroes, but into the timeless tale of Galactus. Their status as celebrities is being threatened as people would start to lose faith in them when they can't get the job done. There's so much more at stake when all of their hard work is being threatened alongside their own personal image. It's a great use of the multiverse and a refreshing twist to the story that adds a whole new layer of depth. Had this kind of thing just happened in the regular old MCU, it would have just been another Tuesday. They literally already had a giant guy appear in the sky and threaten them. That universe is so burned out of these global catastrophes. So setting First Steps on its own Earth and then making Galactus be the villain of that film immediately creates this new sense of responsibility for the Fantastic Four. They've done all this hard work of making this world as perfect as possible, and now they're going up against something that they can't fight. For the first time in their superheroing careers, they are completely out of their depth and they're starting to lose that confidence they've built up. He's gonna challenge the Fantastic Four in ways they couldn't even fathom and threaten to undo all the hard work they've done. And if you even want to go a step further and add more depth to this story, it's important to think about the connection Galactus has to Franklin. Yeah, the cosmic elder being of the universe is connected to this baby more than anyone else in the multiverse. It's like the coughing baby versus the hydrogen bomb come to life, except the hydrogen bomb can engulf entire planets without breaking a sweat, and yet the baby still wins. In the comics, Franklin is so powerful that Galactus goes on to become his herald as Franklin grows up to become the new Galactus. That's a lot to process, so take your time and go read the Hickman run. I promise you it'll make sense, and it is so peak, but all you need to know is that this kid is so powerful that it scares Galactus, which is actually insane to think about. Obviously, he's gonna feel threatened by that kind of unstable power being put into the universe and not being distributed properly. It immediately puts him in conflict with the Fantastic Four in a much more personal way than we're used to. Yet another interesting wrinkle that completely flips their dynamic on its head. Not only is Galactus hungry for more energy, but he wants their child and isn't taking no for an answer. And also, it differentiates him from any other version of Galactus we've seen seen before, as his motivations aren't as one note where he just wants to eat the planet. Now he could be making the argument that he's trying to protect the world from the unstable power that Franklin possesses, because think of all the accidents he could create as this unpredictable baby, and from a pragmatic standpoint, he's almost starting to make sense. The ultimate moral dilemma, as these fresh parents have the weight of their world on their shoulders, and the only way to lessen that burden is to give up their only son. Absolutely heartbreaking and equally exciting. How do the Fantastic Four get out of a situation like that? I have no clue, honestly, but it's not my job to figure that out. I'm not the smartest man in the universe. I'm just here to explain why Galactus is the perfect villain for this movie, and it's stories like that which make it very clear as to why. I also think that using Galactus is a huge indication of the direction the MCU is heading. As much as I may want to ignore it, there is a frustrating past in comic book adaptations that love to try and take these goofy ideas and make them grounded and serious. And if I could be frank with you, I am so tired of that. I want to see those silly ideas adapted earnestly. No more avoiding something because it's too unrealistic or the colors are too vibrant. It's time to embrace that. First Step seems to understand that, as this movie isn't afraid to lean into those larger-than-life ideas. A silly world where a giant planet-eating man with a weird helmet is friends with a chrome surfer is welcomed with open arms, and that puts the biggest smile on my face. Galactus is a great way to set the tone for the Fantastic Four in this universe, as Marvel is able to transition audiences into the pulpy sci-fi storytelling that I have yearned for. Adapting Galactus correctly is a promise from the studio that these characters are going to be taken seriously for who they are. They aren't trying to mold their history into something that it isn't. They're taking these ideas seriously and doing them exactly as they are on the page, with modern twists that keep things interesting. Just seeing Galactus as an enormous man in purple armor walking through the streets of New York City immediately let me know that this movie would be in good hands. Director Matt Shakman is someone who clearly cares about doing the Fantastic Four justice, and Galactus is the biggest sign of that. Literally, he's massive. You can't miss him. And while we haven't seen much of him yet, this movie clearly understands how to best utilize Galactus. He's the biggest obstacle for the Fantastic Four to face, and I cannot wait to see what they do with him. There is so much potential for him to be a genre-defying villain who helps usher in this bold new era of the MCU. Using Galactus in this film is Marvel Studios making a statement that they are embracing the wonderful mythos of the Fantastic Four and doing these characters right. And from a storytelling sense, there's no better way to get an understanding of who these characters are than by putting them up against Galactus. We get to see what makes them different as they use those big brains of theirs to outsmart Galactus. There is so much potential to do some really exciting and subversive storytelling with this kind of fight, and for a movie that's about establishing the Fantastic Four as Marvel's first family, making them the focal point of the MCU going forward, it's a no-brainer to use Galactus to accentuate that point. And oh my god, we are so lucky to have Ralph Ineson leading the charge as Galactus. Just listen here to his voice and tell me that he isn't the perfect casting choice.
Apparently I was too tall for my character in Harry Potter as well.
Come on, man, that was insane. I'm begging Marvel to keep his Galactus voice hidden in all the marketing, because it is going to be such a surreal experience hearing that for the first time in an IMAX theater. On top of that though, his design is perfect. This is all I could have ever wanted and more. It's as if he was ripped straight from the pages of the comics and placed into the real world. I know some people don't love that he's a little more desaturated than he is in the comics, but personally, I think the visual contrast of him entering the Fantastic Four's bright and colorful world makes it absolutely worth it. Literally sucking the life out of everything with visuals alone. And who knows, maybe the more energy he devours, the more saturated he becomes. And whoever it was that decided to texture Galactus like a living Death Star needs a raise. It really sells the fact that he is a walking world killer and makes him all the more intimidating. He's also an $80 popcorn bucket, and what more could you want than that? You know, come to think about it, for that popcorn bucket, I'm not asking forgiveness for what I've done, I'm asking forgiveness for what I'm about to do. But what do you think about Galactus being the villain of the MCU's first Fantastic Four film? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm making Galactus green again, and none of us want to see that. I get nightmares just thinking about it.